Hi, I'm Mark Smalls, Civil Discourse Now. It's September 10th, 2022. The last couple of days, we've seen a bunch of stuff going on out of Hamilton County. It's just north of Indianapolis, where in a rather lightning move, a library in Hamilton County had someone placed on its board of trustees. Now, the person was Micah Beckwith, who is a preacher who ran for Congress a couple of years ago in the same primary I did. Beckwith has said that LGBTQ people are not really good. He said that you can't be moral if you're a Hindu, an atheist, or a Jew. Now, that's always bothered me that he would make that kind of assessment, especially from being an evangelical preacher, because then that would mean that an individual of any of those beliefs or of a different kind of Christianity. I've heard preachers in small towns and out in rural areas demean, make fun of people who are baptized only by sprinkling and not by complete immersion. At one point, people who are not capable of being moral would be deemed not being able. Seen this played out sometimes in history. They're not able to really exercise any rights because they're not equal to us. They're not up on our level. They cannot be moral. So, what do? Well, Beckwith, and this has to do with guns, Beckwith did have on his website a thing where they had God, guns, and babes every week. It was described as gun safety. There are euphemisms like that that are used or have been used in history. That's really weapons training. And when I see somebody who's a minority, definite minority, trying to hang on to any kind of power, and they're starting to talk religions, you can't ask them about their beliefs. That's under Ballard versus United States. Can't inquire as to their religious beliefs, but they're sure grabbing tax money, vouchers and stuff like that. And you combine that with the Second Amendment right that kind of percolated up, never was considered to be an individual's right, not until about 20, 30 years ago, because before that, it was the militia that was something that the people had a right in. That kind of bothers me, because in no reading of the Constitution that's credible would you find that the people could form a group, get armed, and overthrow the government. The reason why is the framers of the Constitution were setting up a framework for government, but also you'd be talking about overthrowing them. They wouldn't have written something up that would enable somebody to overthrow them. On top of that is the fact that, like, right before the Constitutional Convention, there had been Shays' Rebellion in Massachusetts, in which people took up arms to protest over the fact that a lot of them were veterans from the Revolutionary War, and that wasn't war, it was a revolution. Anyways, they couldn't pay bills. They'd had to pay these vouchers that were good after so many years for their having been shot at and everything in the revolution. And they had to give those vouchers for pennies on the dollar to landlords who took them gladly and then evicted them when they didn't have any more money. So the framers of the Constitution were very much aware of what a rebellion looked like, what an insurrection looked like. And they wouldn't have written that into the Constitution. They wouldn't have written in a means by which they could be overthrown themselves. Not only that, they viewed the matter of separation of church and state as being important. They'd seen the Reformation, they'd seen Christianity fighting for decades and a lot of people dying, being killed. And they were aware of the dangers of having religion become part of the government. Now, things changed a lot when the 14th Amendment came into effect at the end of the Civil War, as ratified. And that gave a broader understanding and broader power to the central government, because the states up until then, until the Civil War, had really kind of been running on their own, a lot less than under the Articles of Confederation. But the 14th Amendment gave people more of a guarantee of the federal government protecting our rights. So when you got somebody like Beckwith, who misquotes history, states things about the framers that aren't true, and says not only is this a theocracy, but from what I've heard when he was talking before, the framers created a theocracy, and I'm sorry, that's bullshit. I don't know how else to say it. Now, I blogged today, and I said, well, we've seen this played out before. The KKK in 1920, 25 here in Indiana, and I said they're all good Christians as they were lynching people. In 1993, David Koresh and the Branch Davidians had a lot of weapons. Arming people and having them say that they are acting on God's behalf doesn't turn out well. And I just want to make sure people understand one thing. I am not comparing Beckwith to David Koresh. Koresh had a compound that had been walled off, and there had been really a removal from society in a great many ways of his, as a cult. And he also played guitar pretty well, and I never heard Beckwith play guitar quite that well. I'm Mark Small, at Civil Discourse Now. We are in dangerous times. We saw what a civil war could look like. Saw it on January 6th, just a bunch of people who don't know what the hell they're doing, try to kill people who are doing their jobs. Civil Discourse Now, September 10th, 2022. Peace, happiness, love, freedom. Take care.